Last year was a pretty tough year for Activision Blizzard employees. Recall that back in February of 2019, Activision Blizzard cut nearly 800 jobs despite the fact that they saw a record year in 2018. They had made more money than ever before, and yet they said that the company was struggling too much to be able to maintain these almost 800 jobs. And among those laid off was none other than Christina McConan, who, since the layoffs, has been pretty outspoken about criticizing Activision Blizzard's employment practices, and understandably so. But doing so has had side effects. Her husband goes by the name Jan McConan, also known as Savage Z on Twitter. He's a streamer and a YouTuber, and he is a Hearthstone player who used to get invited to a lot of these events, but then out of the blue, Blizzard decided to blacklist this individual because of his relationship to Christina McConan, who's been outspoken about Activision Blizzard after those layoffs. So here's how Christina put it. I'm just gonna say it because it's affecting my husband's mental health. Blizzard is currently blacklisting Savage Z from events because I spoke out against the company and offended a community manager by responding to their tweet with, "Are you fucking serious right now? What a joke." In a call with said community manager, who has me blocked on Twitter, the community manager stated to Savage Z that I would not be welcome at any Hearthstone event and would not be able to accompany him in case Savage Z was invited to anything in the future. Punishing me is one thing. They don't like me speaking out against what I believe is wrong. Punishing my husband just to punish me is grossly unprofessional. Here are my own receipts to say that this is deserving of blacklisting Savage Z is ridiculous. I was incredulous at best to the community manager in question. I assure you that I have received far worse from my time as a community manager. So she was a former community manager before she was laid off, hit by that wave of nearly 800 jobs lost at Activision Blizzard. As for what exactly she was responding to when she tweeted out, "Are you fucking serious right now?" It's this tweet by Chris Adelos that reads, "Have a love for Hearthstone, passionate about community, wanting to work at Blizzard. If you answered yes to the above, come join my team." This was posted back in July of 2019, and keep in mind that this is only months after the mass layoffs happened at Activision Blizzard, with Christina McConan being among those affected. So for her to see that Activision Blizzard is hiring after they laid off 800 people, you can see how that comes across, right? And then Christina continued with this tweet, "I will continue to speak out against things I believe are wrong with the industry. It is the only way things will improve. You don't have to agree with me." Shortly after Christina posted this string of tweets, her husband, Jan McConan, the Hearthstone player in question, who was blacklisted from events because of his relationship with his wife, who's been outspoken about Activision Blizzard, he tweeted, "This is the reason that was given to me when I said I want to play at this event. My wife was part of the 800 layoffs and she spoke up about the unjust practices of the company. I was told I'm a liability because of who I am married to." And from what I understand, Jan isn't the one who's kind of being outspoken and critical of the company. He's just doing what he's doing. He's just playing Hearthstone, doing his own stuff. It's his wife, primarily, who's been outspoken. Jan technically didn't do anything that would warrant some kind of blacklisting or ban from Hearthstone events. It's just the Blizzard community manager reacting as such because he believes that if you're associated with someone that the company doesn't like, then you deserve to be punished. And word eventually got back to the community lead, who apologized to Jan McConan for this. Here's what Jan McConan shared on that front. "I got an apology from the community lead. I'm now okay to participate in future events, and my wife is okay to visit future live events as a guest. I had no idea this would blow up the way it did. Thanks to everyone who sort of came to my aid. I don't know how to say it better." So this was posted at 10 p.m. on June 23rd. So that's 10 hours after this 12 p.m. tweet in which he talked about his grievances against the company blacklisting him from events. So This got solved pretty quickly once the community sort of backed him up, so that's great, and that's sort of the power of community, which is amazing. Jan McConan proceeded. They stated that I was refusing to sign a normal event NDA, and that was the reason I was not being considered for events. This was not the case. No NDA was ever brought up in conversations. Christina's ban from live events was never a company thing in the first place, and the employee who said this did not have the authority or power to enforce it. The employee in question, I believe, being Chris Adelis, who was the one who got this response that led to her getting blocked on Twitter and also apparently getting blacklisted from events alongside her husband, who didn't really actually do anything to warrant such a response. Jan McConan concluded with this: "We still feel like we were treated unfairly, but I really want to just move past this. I'm having a lot of fun with Battlegrounds, easily the best fast-paced multiplayer strategy game out there right now, in my opinion, and if there is another invitational later that I play in, I want to keep making daily videos and streams to show I deserve my spot." So he handled this pretty gracefully, setting the record straight on what exactly happened and what's going on, expressing his dissent against the way they were treated, while still expressing that ultimately he just wants to move on and just keep doing what he does. Now right here he talks about how they stated he was refusing to sign some kind of NDA, and that was the reason he was refused from the event, stating that this is not the case, that no NDA was ever brought up in conversations. But that's the story that Blizzard is relaying to media outlets like Tim Rizzo here, who is an editor at Invent Global. Here's the statement that Tim got from Blizzard about this whole situation. The statement reads: "Savage Z was not excluded from yesterday's Battlegrounds Brawl event due to his relationship or any type of blacklist. We didn't consider him for it due to a discussion where he did not agree to our request for confidentiality," putting the notion out there that it had to do with him not signing an NDA more than his relationship to his former Blizzard employee wife, who was part of the 800 or so layoffs. "We reveal unreleased information at our events, so it's important to us to have agreements in place with all partners that prevent the sharing of that information with anyone who isn't approved to receive it, including friends and family. This is a team policy, not an individual's decision. We strive to support and treat fairly all of our partners, content creators, and streamers." It didn't take long for Christina McConan to call foul on that statement and respond as follows: "Too bad it's a lie. Savage Z has been under many confidential agreements with Blizzard and has never broken a single one. During his call with the community manager on Discord, which was on speaker, the CM requested Savage Z to not tell me about the fact I was not allowed at events. Savage Z declined. It wasn't about information, it was about me. I still visit campus to this day to see friends. I'm under NDA to not discuss future product releases, which I have knowledge of and have always honored them. I spoke out and they wanted to punish Savage Z via me. Sorry, Blizzard, not gonna let you pass the buck to Savage Z on this one. It's not on him, and this response is absolutely nonsense for someone who has been working with Hearthstone at and in events for 6 years now. Stop lying." And then later that day, she posted this: "Last night, the community lead apologized to Savage Z via DM. The lead was told bad information from the community manager, which led to their decision to not continue inviting Savage Z to events. This morning, they posted this, once again trying to pass blame to Savage Z." So in private, the community lead actually apologized and took responsibility for this misunderstanding. In public, though, Blizzard is trying to make it seem as though Savage Z did something wrong by not signing some NDA that apparently doesn't really exist or isn't really even necessary, given the NDAs that Christina and Jan McConan are already under. Adding further context to this story is Slasher, aka Rod Broslow, who is an esports consultant. Here is what he tweeted on the story. According to longtime Hearthstone player Savage Z, he is being blacklisted from competing in Hearthstone esports tournaments by Blizzard because his wife, Zarina X, a former Blizzard Hearthstone esports employee, has been publicly criticizing Blizzard since the company mass fired people. According to a source, Blizzard came to Savage Savage Z last December and told him to not share information with his wife because she was a liability for criticizing Blizzard, which Savage Z declined. Savage Z has since not been invited to Hearthstone esports events. Savage Z and Zarina X confirm this story. So Rod Broslow, via a source, also seems to be confirming this information and the story that Zarina X and Savage Z relayed. Now, something Slasher clarified was that when Chris Atalis posted this job listing, it wasn't to fill one of the jobs that was lost as part of the nearly 800 layoffs, but rather it had more to do with trying to fill the position of someone who resigned after the mass layoffs had happened. That's where this job listing comes from. It still feels rather insensitive, obviously. Why not just hire back one of the 800 people who got laid off instead of posting a brand new job listing? I still understand why Christina McConan took umbrage with this, but that's just a bit of clarification on that front. To that effect, Slasher tweeted regarding this aspect of the story, according to a Reddit post 11 months ago that was confirmed by the person in question. The community manager position that Blizzard was advertising to fill was for someone who had recently resigned, not part of the 800 layoffs. And attached to the tweet is a screenshot confirming this when a Reddit user said, "This is for the position of a community manager who just recently resigned. This isn't one of the laid off positions." The individual who actually resigned actually responded with confirmation saying, "Can confirm, source, am the person who resigned." One last correction he added was that the conversation that took place back in December was initiated by Savage Z, not by Blizzard, but the results of the conversation were still the same. So these are all important corrections to make to give the situation the full context, but at the end of the day, the fact remains that Blizzard blacklisted a player from a Hearthstone event because of their association with a wife who was a former Activision Blizzard employee who was part of the nearly 800 layoffs, who was understandably disgruntled by that happening during a record year and decided to speak out against the company. And all of this comes across as incredibly hypocritical when you consider one of the tenets that is listed in Blizzard's official website, for example. They say right here, "Every voice matters. Great ideas can come from anywhere. Blizzard Entertainment is what it is today because of the voices of our players and of each member of the company. Every employee is encouraged to speak up, listen, be respectful of other opinions, and embrace criticism as just another avenue for great ideas." Embrace criticism, you say. Every employee is encouraged to speak up, you say. Well, a former employee tried to speak up, and she was subsequently punished alongside her husband, who did nothing wrong. Her husband was only punished because of his association with her. Does that sound to you like a company that genuinely believes every voice matters? And don't even get me started with the whole Blitzchung situation that really highlights how every voice doesn't actually matter to Blizzard. When he very briefly expressed support for the protests in Hong Kong for the human rights of his people, Blizzard decided to ban him right there and then alongside the two casters who let him say this very brief thing that did not on a major capacity disrupt the tournament in any way. Keep in mind that not every employee agrees with the way Blizzard handles these kinds of situations. When the whole Blitzchung debacle played out, some employees covered up the plaque that reads "Every Voice Matters" in Blizzard HQ because what happened with Blitzchung was completely unrepresentative of this tenet. And even with Christina and Jan McConan's situation, I do remember actually going through some tweets of Blizzard employees who reached out to them and supported them saying, "Let me talk to someone about this because this isn't right." So there are people within Blizzard who do not believe this was the correct response or that the whole Blitzchung situation was the correct response. And in the case here, it would seem as it might have been this one rogue community manager. Jan did say in one of his tweets that this was never a company thing in the first place and that the employee who said this did not have the authority or power to enforce it. So it might have been this one renegade community manager who decided to take matters into his own hands. But Blizzard as a company does become complicit when they put out statements like this in public saying that Savage Z did not sign some kind of NDA, which Savage Z and Zarina X are both saying that such an NDA doesn't exist. They are already under NDAs that don't allow them to talk about upcoming projects and the like. All Christina has been doing is criticizing the company for their practices, with her husband getting caught in the crossfire. In private, they apologized to this couple. In public, they still try to pretend like they did nothing wrong, when they should be apologizing both privately and publicly, assuming that all of the claims that Christina and Jan McKonen made are true, which they seem to be, judging by the fact that Blizzard did in the end relent and privately apologize to them. It just feels like Blizzard is trying to bury this under the rug rather than addressing this issue and potentially a misunderstanding head on. It just feels like they're trying to double down on not taking accountability and responsibility in the eyes of the public. With all said and done, I'm glad that this whole situation was ultimately resolved. It shouldn't have taken backlash from a community for Blizzard to do the right thing here, for them to actually show that, according to their morals and tenets, every voice matters. It clearly doesn't. The only voices that matter are seemingly the ones that benefit Blizzard. But alas, Jan McKonen is able to attend and participate in Hearthstone events again, and even his wife is okay to visit future live events as a guest, despite her criticisms against the company. That's how it should be. Criticism should be taken as an avenue for great ideas. It's literally right on your website as part of your tenet. It's literally right on the plaque of your company here, Blizzard. Anyway, long story short, I'm glad the bullshit was called out and that this all ultimately led to an ideal result. So that's my take on this whole situation, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this situation surrounding Christina and Jan McKonen. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.